I'm going to replace all my software engineers with AI. And my advice is, yeah, go just try that and let's see how it works out.
But that 70% that's left is the hard part of the programming where you probably still need that creative human.
Before you jump in and start making decisions about we want to use this, we want to use that, it's important to understand the business and where you can really use it.
Welcome back, everybody, to AI with Bride, the podcast where we explore how to learn, leverage, and lead with artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Brian Denstead, and today we're diving into the critical intersection of AI and cybersecurity. Our guest is Kevin Carlson. He is a veteran technology executive with a wealth of experience as a four-time chief technology officer and a chief information security officer. At Tech CXO, Kevin leads our product and technology group's artificial intelligence practice, helping organizations navigate the complexities of emerging technologies and security challenges. Kevin's expertise spans big data, predictive analytics, machine learning, and AI model development. And I think you're an inventor of two AI patents that you've developed for a client in the media and entertainment sector in the past. So, beyond his technical acumen, Kevin is recognized as an executive coach and guiding technology leaders through the evolving digital landscape. So, welcome to the show, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Brian. It's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Well, let's start with that learn segment. Like with your extensive background, in the rapidly changing world of AI that changes every day, I feel like, what is something new or surprising that you've been learning about AI recently?
Oh gosh, well, there's plenty to learn out there, right? But I think the biggest thing that I learn is we're riding a hype wave, right? There's a lot of hype out there. There's tons of practical application for AI, but there's probably more hype, right? So for me, it's really digging in and learning about what capabilities are, what are great use cases, what are good applications of AI, and how can you approach them in a way that doesn't overcommit a client or a company to something that's super expensive and may not hit the mark. So and I think the other thing that I'm learning about AI that's just surprising is just how much there is going on with AI. Not surprising, but it's always more than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching something over the weekend that kind of blew my mind. I want to get your take on it. Is right now I feel like all these AI startups are secretly using Gemini or OpenAI or DeepSeek or whatever behind the scenes, and they're coming out with some amazing tools. But with OpenAI's announcement and some of the new tool sets I've seen Gemini roll out, I think the paradigm is going to rapidly shift to the opposite. I think we're going to be going to OpenAI and Gemini as the interface, and those tools will be connected to everything else that you want to interface with and ask questions about. What is your thoughts on this rapidly evolving landscape of
Mm.
who's got the tools and the interfaces? And that's what I'm learning about too. It's so exciting.
Yeah, so that could happen for sure. But one of the challenges with building a large language model is it just takes a tremendous amount of resources. So that's naturally going to lead to a situation where large LLMs are sort of concentrated in big tech and potentially government in the future, but just companies with tons of resources. And the rest of us are going to be using foundational models like Meta's Llama and others that are available out there and building on top of those, right? Because you just don't have not every company has the resources to train a model like this from scratch. In terms of connectors and being able to do different things, there's lots of cool technology out there right now too. That's sort of standardizing the connectivity between things. So if you go back to what I consider sort of the beginnings of that with RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and providing context to these models like in the moment, and then the ability to retrieve data from third-party services, I think that sort of landscape grows. I do think it'll be possible for, non-big tech, non-government entities to build similar models using foundational models and then implementing sort of those context additions themselves.
I love it. Have you, I mean, I primarily am using GPT all the time for just chats and deep research. I'm totally in love with deep research. I don't like I have to wait 15 minutes, but if I ask my assistant to go research it anyway, they'd take 2 hours to do it. So it's impressive on that front. Like, What about the video, audio? Like, I don't know, talk to us about some of the tools that you're dipping your toes in and learning about.
Yeah, so well, video is really, really cool, and it's come a long way in the last year. It's pretty amazing. Like if you look back at things, mid 2024 to now, the quality difference is just staggering. The other thing that's staggering is the cost for like if you want to do let's say a feature length film using AI. You still plan it out the same way using a shot list and whatever and generate things, but the cost is pretty high. Not as high as actually hiring a crew and making a full length feature film, but it's up there. Um,
Yeah.
for for audio, this is kind of a spot near and dear to my heart because, um, as you probably know, I dabble in music on the side and
Hmm.
have been a songwriter for years. And when I see copyrighted material being used to train these models, that concerns me, right? So there's that side of audio, like music, which I think there's some dangers to that and some concerns to that, where it actually I think can rob us of some creativity and make
Yeah.
sound very middle of the road, mainstream across the board if people really get into generating their own music. But the other side of audio is like speech to text processing, being able to generate audio. Like 11 Labs has got absolutely amazing product for
Hmm.
voice, generation. Can, make it sound just like me or you if we provide the right samples, and it can be very useful. The dark side of that is, if you use a bank that has like voice identification, it's very easy now if you get a voice sample to override voice identification as a form of like multi-factor authentication. So
Yeah.
like most technology, there's a great upside and a accordingly not so great downside.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, it's such an interesting perspective. I haven't found a, a competitor to 11 Labs. I like, the general models, there is the big three, four, five out there, I think, and they all neck and neck each other every month, it seems like. The voice side, it seems like 11 Labs is the clear winner. The video side is just mind-blowing. Again, there's three or four strong competitors there, I think. But yeah, it's definitely I'm so excited, but so scared at the same time on certain aspects of this for sure. Did you
Yeah.
have like, you know, as we're trying to learn, about AI, have you stumbled across some of the misconceptions leaders have about AI's capabilities and even
Sure.
like as you talk about securing these digital assets that we've spent all this time creating and we want to protect them.
Yeah, so I'll use software engineers as the example. This is the one that you always hear about. And I think it's because to a lot of people in business, software engineering is, kind of an unknown. They haven't done it, right? That's changing. I think with the younger generation, more and more people are coming out of school, even high school, with some idea of what it's like to program. And there's no doubt that AI is going to make programming different than it has been historically. But the misconception that I hear from a lot of folks is I'm going to replace all my software engineers with AI. And my advice is, yeah, go just try that and let's see how it works out. Because look, the fact of the matter is it takes care of things it knows how to do. AI is, right now is primarily pattern recognition and regeneration. So for things like basic CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete operations on a database, or authentication, or things that have to be done for every, say, SaaS application, integration with payment systems like Stripe and things like that. Those have been done, hundreds of thousands of times, and there's lots and lots of code out there for them, and it can generate those things much more quickly than a developer can.
Hmm.
Great application. But AI can primarily recreate or maybe synthesize from a couple of ideas, but it still struggles today to do something that's truly innovative or to integrate with a new service it's never seen or heard about or hasn't been trained on, right? So when I think about the level of hype around replacing software engineers, I look at Microsoft for an example. They're big investors in OpenAI, obviously. They're
Hmm.
rolling out AI across all their products, and they came out with a statement a couple of weeks ago saying that 30% of their code is now generated by AI. All right, that's a good target. 30% is a great target. So if you're creating an app and say 90% of it is stuff that's been written before, is it really a unique app? I'm not so sure, right? But if you can get 30%, that's great, right? That's definitely more speed. But and this is what I was talking about earlier about the hype. The hype out there is you hear people saying we're going to replace our entire software development team with AI. And
Yeah.
I think it was a couple of months ago, I read something on LinkedIn about a company that got rid of a handful of developers and then was hiring them back because it didn't really work. Um, you still need people that understand the code and can look
Yeah.
at AI generated code because it does hallucinate, right? And it does do things wrong, and you have to tell it to correct itself. Um, but advances, come every day. I was recently looking at a new VS Code plugin called Cline, Cline, that integrates with a bunch of different models, including locally deployed models, and it does a pretty amazing job of just writing code, creating files, correcting errors in the files. So certainly we'll get a lot of efficiencies there, but full replacement, I think, is probably a little further off.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, on two major things humanity has to come to terms with is the creativity that authors and musicians and everybody out there has got to be solved. Like we've got to still reward those people for their contributions that on creativity. I think AI can usher in a new era of creativity, but we need to reward the creators. And the second thing is, I mean, I've tried it myself, regular coding versus the vibe coding with AI. And the vibe coding gets me in these loops where it just doesn't know how to do it. And then I'm just like, I should have just wrote it for myself. I would have saved an hour of my time because I know how to do it. But like you hit the nail on the head. I think 30% is the right target for AI to help me with the login page, help me with the forgot password page, help me with the Stripe integrate. Those are perfect use cases for AI, and it will save 30%. But that 70% that's left is the hard part of the programming where you probably still need that creative human in the middle there. I mean, I think that's a perfect segue into the leveraging component of the podcast here. How are you applying AI in the organizations that you're a part of? Like, how are you getting these people to leverage AI day to day and get to that 30%?
Well, the first thing I always do when I'm talking to a company about AI it's education, right? It's what's real and what's hype, and that's where I start because the hype is so attention getting that's what a lot of people sort of glom onto. So once I sort of give them examples of what's real and what their expectations should be with regard to AI, I walk them through a deployment model. I call it AIM, AI implementation model. And it's essentially starting with commercially available models because you can do proofs of concept there for specific use cases at low cost. But the downside of that is that you also have low differentiation because everybody else is pretty much using the same model. Moving up from there, if you need more privacy or you have some specific data that you want to, retrain a model on or put layers on top of a model like Llama and train it, you can use foundational models for that. That's a little bit higher cost, but it gives you much higher differentiation. And really, for the greatest impact is also the greatest investment is developing a truly proprietary model from scratch. I see very few people doing the latter anymore unless they have something really unique to do. Like you mentioned the patents earlier. That was extremely unique. We developed a model for a client that could isolate the most interesting moments in a podcast, among other things.
Mhm.
And got some had some really interesting experiments around that, and it took a couple of months to get to, and then refined over a period of like a year and a half. So a much bigger investment. So after we understand the different sort of implementation types for AI, then we focus in on proofs of concept. What's going to bring value to the company right now, and let's scope it to where it can fit maybe with a commercially available model. If there's privacy concerns, let's just go straight to a foundational model and deploy that on-prem or in the cloud in a private VPC, and they can use it however they wish without worrying about data getting out. So that's generally how I approach it. Like, let's start small, let's focus, let's start on quick returns with low cost commercially available models, and then let's take it step by step from there.
I'm curious. Yeah, I love the AIM model, and like as we go in as CTOs and CISOs and stuff and help these companies lay out their AI roadmap, the components that I see is how do we get everybody to that same playing field? Do you know what a basic prompt engineering concept is? And let's guide you through that. But it's also like, how do we just get you this general AI level as a starting point? And then it's almost like looking at it, in my opinion, like on a department by department level of how can a specific tool help marketing or developers or security, et cetera. What do you see? Like, I see a couple different companies like exploring the light LLMs or I forget the Fox one or something that's out there, or versus just signing up with Gemini or OpenAI for the $20 per month per employee. So 100-person company, they all need the tool, and we need to lock that tool down and control our data governance and things like that. Like, how do you guide them through that first entry point piece and then get them into those specialized components you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's really understanding um, largely the company's data, I guess, for lack of a better word, and maybe that's the right word, but it's really understanding that data and the privacy concerns around it, the regulatory concerns around it. Look, I mean, you can use OpenAI's ChatGPT and you can check the box saying keep this chat private, but what if there's an error on their end, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what that's what I'm concerned about. Like when I use ChatGPT and I want to have it do something, and I've got something I want to feed into a prompt, then I make sure I completely anonymize it first, just in case. And I do
Hmm.
want to come back and address the point you made about prompt engineering. To me, this is such a funny concept because prompt engineering is, to me, nothing more than the ability to describe to the model what you want. This
That's
is
right. Yeah.
different talking to a person. And it kind of blows my mind that, we give all this thought around how we talk to an AI model, and we don't give the same consideration to somebody else when we have a conversation with them. And
That's
imagine how
right.
much better it would be if we did that. So,
Yeah.
and it's a learning curve, right? I don't try to give my clients canned prompts because then that's what they'll use. I want to encourage
Hmm.
them to just like, here's a basic starting point, and then here's some directions you can take it. And I encourage them to explore and try different things. And if they don't get what they want the first time through, change what they're asking for and try it again.
Yeah.
There's no penalty for it, and it's a matter of trial and error. Like if you just hired a new employee and you threw them into the fire and said, okay, you have to go do this, you're going to have to tell them exactly how to do it if they're new. So you kind of have to look at these LLMs the same way.
I agree completely. I mean, it it's they 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 ask a simple question and expect this big long answer. I do think you nailed it right on the head. Like you have to treat the AI prompt just like, the smartest person on earth and be very, very explicit and just walk it through that. So I typically say the Ryzen framework, role and, all that kind of stuff. But like either way, it's sad that we have to teach people how to talk on that front. But I think that's what we need to do as leaders is to help mentor and guide these people to that next stage of it, really, and guide them with how to best communicate. Like just like I remember one of my first jobs, IBM sent me on a 3-week training program to be indoctrinated on how to do expense reports, how to run a project, all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And I think that's lost. I mean, I know I prepped for probably at least 20 minutes for this podcast to make sure I had some good, smart questions to ask you and stuff like that. And we need to find that time blocking to have that like heads down time instead of going from meeting to meeting to meeting and then being exhausted at the end of the day. So
totally
I
agree.
don't know. We're
Yeah.
dipping into the last segment here, which is really our lead segment. And that's what it's all about. I think that's the essence of why you would potentially hire me or you to help a company grow in the AI space on that front. That's why I wanted to put this podcast together because this is such an important topic of how to embrace our new digital employees that are coming in and getting the digital employees to work well with the real ones. So how are you finding leading technology leaders and companies and educating them and leveraging it, but really leading these companies through on their AI journeys?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to understand the business, right? And understand the challenges that they have. And what I like to get people past is, are you looking at AI because AI, or are you looking at AI to actually do something real? Um, yes, it's great. You can deploy or use, Chat GPT or Gemini or Claude or any of these to do one-off tasks. But if you really want to integrate it with your business, then you have to have, I think, a pretty solid understanding of where you can get efficiencies, or either through doing things faster or doing things in a more automated fashion. So like document summarization, or even some, you know, uh, like if you want to generate a PowerPoint using ChatGPT, right, and then put it into a company template or something, that's something that's pretty quick. You could certainly do it yourself, but it could be done in maybe 2 minutes instead of 30 minutes or an hour, versus something that's completely automated using agents. Um, before you jump in and start making decisions about, we want to use this, we want to use that, because of news articles you've read or podcasts you've listened to, I think it's important to understand the business and where you can really use it. And I think that's where folks like you and me come in. Is we've done this, we've been involved in AI for a while, and we typically know places in a business that where AI could be leveraged quickly and successfully. And then as the executive team or the leadership learns more about it and they start seeing those opportunities in different places, and the discussion opens up. But ultimately, you have to pick a place and start somewhere where you're going to get, or see a quick win, see some evidence this is really going to work for the company.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I think that's what separates some people from the others is having that business acumen, having sat at the board table, having sat at the executive table enough to understand, like, look, we have got to generate sales, we've got to generate revenue to make the payroll and to do those things. And this is how technology and marketing and others are going to work hand in hand. I I think it's interesting because everybody wants to jump into AI and go straight to the agentic automation to replace employees or something like that. But you really do have to do exactly what you said: crawl, walk, and then run into AI. And don't expect to get there tomorrow just because you saw us talking about it on the podcast. I think it's also really important. Like, one of the threads I want to pull out of what you said is automation versus like true agentic. Like, I think most of the time, like, I hope most businesses have got these standard operating procedures in place. This is how we handle customer success. This is how we handle leads. This is how we handle deployments of code. Now you have that standard operating procedure. Now, how do I take AI and automate that to remove the human from that rote repetitive thing? And I think that's a good place to start with the crawl. Let me help you automate this, or help me let you automate that. And then you can get into these agentic things where you have this ability for the AI to think and reason and try and predict which path it should go to, or which other agent or automation it should follow. And I think people are confused by that. Do you want to help unpack, automation versus agentic, and maybe this crawl, walk, run approach a little bit more for us?
I can try, right? I think so. I guess an example I would use it in the context of my day to day is when I need to write a proposal for a client, right? Um, I can I guess automate's the wrong word, but I can record the call. Like, I have a call with a client about a potential project, and we talk through it, and we ask questions about the scope and the timeline and everything, and then I can use a tool like Otter or Fathom or something similar to record that, and then I can ask it a question, right? So it says, what are the requirements for this project? So that would be, I guess, in a sense, some level of automation of that, or it's really more like efficiency gains, I would say. But true agentic would be like, I would have the call, and 5 minutes later, a proposal would pop out, complete with
That's
estimate,
right.
right? So the danger in that right now is that, do you believe the models are correct, right? So
Yeah.
going back to the coding example where you've got 30% of stuff that can be done pretty reliably, do you want to take a chance on AI creating a proposal that's going to be for a non, an unprofitable, project for your company, right? Probably not, right? So there's still that human element in there. Um, the best use of agentic that I've personally seen is actually in software development, where I can, write a prompt, right inside of my code editor using Klein and have it, generate files and code and test it out and you do all kind of stuff, right? And it's not, I would say, end-to-end automated because you still have to approve things, which is a good thing right now. But
Hmm.
it's closer to agentic, software development than what I've seen before, which is typically generate the code, copy it, and paste it into the editor.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you described it very well, in my opinion. I really love the emphasis that you've put on, the leadership, adaptability that we've, subtly talked about throughout this conversation. And, I think, being on the forefront of AI like you and I are to a degree, it it showcases how we have to be continuously learning and adapting in this really fast changing world. So I love also like, we have to just be guiding these teams through technological shifts. And it does take a little bit more than just some technical knowledge. So
Agreed.
thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate you jumping on the show and hanging out with us and departing some amazing insights into this for us. So
Sure, man. Thanks for having me and enjoyed the conversation.
I want everybody to know that our list, well, I guess let's just say everybody that's listening out there, if you loved this episode, found it enlightening in some fashion, please subscribe to AI with Bry, leave a review, and share it with some colleagues that are interested in the future of AI. We're just getting started on this podcast, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. Make some suggestions on who else we should have on the show, or let them know, and I'll be glad to get in touch. You can connect with Kevin through Tech CXO's website, and I think you have your thought leadership blog. It's fractionalcto.blog. Is that right?
No, I've changed it. It's kevincarlson.substack.com.
Perfect. So check out that Substack. I've read several of your articles. I really like the one you did a couple days ago on how to speak up and just ask some great questions. It was a great article, and I think it could be helpful to some of the younger people that are just getting into this space. So thank you for your contributions on that. Appreciate you being here, Kevin.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, man.
Until next time, everybody, I'm Brian Denstead, reminding you to learn, leverage, and lead with AI. This episode of AI with Bry was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bry and visit ai.bry.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.